All right, what is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD interview. Every single week, we interview top entrepreneurs and just straight up top badasses out there dominating their space. These are people choosing to not live a life of mediocrity, but instead to go out there and create massive lives for themselves and for their family. So, got an amazing guest on the show, you guys, today. Somebody I'm really excited to have on the show. Somebody that was a very successful real estate agent, entrepreneur. Now is one of the top trainers and coaches on the planet, as well as a mom that's very active, does yoga, boxing, surfs. So just an overall amazing guest on the show. So welcome to the show, Clara Capano. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Wow, what an introduction.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to have you on. You know, it's I know you're doing a lot of big things, and you've had an amazing career from being a top producing agent to running top brokerages to now helping agents become top agents.
Yeah.
Before we jump into that, though, I'm really interested in your journey because I know you kind of stumbled onto real estate as an accident, and really interested in how this became. Like, how did your entrepreneur journey start in the first place?
Well, I think initially as a young kid, I was always told to play it safe and to have the traditional career. So I initially thought about going into law, and I wanted to be a judge, mostly because I like to tell people what to do. So I thought that would be a lot of fun. And when I got out of college, I stumbled into real estate, and I was extremely fortunate that I was able to connect with a lady named Karen Bernardi out of Boulder, Colorado. And she was running a high performance team and took me under her wing. And it just so happened that as I started pursuing and looking into law at the same time, real estate just sort of came to fruition. But I still, being on a team, I still liked the idea of playing it safe, having the bills paid, and kind of having the safety net of working together. So I went into management and then managed for about 10 years. And I just was not as fulfilled. I knew I wanted to do bigger things. I had these dreams of writing books, of doing more training, and just going more global with the ideas that I had. And it was sort of my parents believing in me. I surrounded myself with some great mentors who kind of gave me the push and sort of kicked me out of the nest. And I just created a system and followed the system. And so in 2010, I took the leap and never looked back. I wish it was something I did earlier. At the same time, the journey that I had being one out of fear, I think a lot of people resonate with. So I'm able to connect with others who are scared to take the leap and kind of share my story and let them know it's going to be okay.
Yep, I love that. So when you stumbled into real estate, because you're going to law school, and then, I mean, how did you stumble into it? Was it through a mutual friend, and you just thought it'd be a good idea for like just some side cash, or how does that happen?
Yeah, well, I was looking at going to law school. I wasn't in law school yet, and I was actually offered a job as a paralegal. And at the same time, a friend of mine connected me with Karen, and Karen was just extremely dynamic, very passionate about what she did. But at the end of the day, it came down to money. The law firm was going to pay me one sum, and Karen was going to pay me more. And I said, let me think about this. Yeah, I'll take the more money and just do this for a couple of years while I work my way into law school. And then I started interviewing attorneys, talking with them, and they all seemed miserable. None of them were happy. They were exhausted. They were working 80, 90 hours a week and had no balance. And all the realtors I came across seemed to have so much passion for what they did. And it just seemed a lot more fun and much more lucrative. And with the contractual issues that I got to work on, the negotiations, I just kind of grew it from there.
Yep, love it. So, okay, so you start then in 93. So I'm guessing at that point,
Yes.
what was it, like, were you an assistant? And then, from there, once you made the mind, did you go into like a buyer's agent's role? Like, kind of walk us through the evolution of that.
Yeah, so Karen had a true team where we had the assembly line where it was she as the primary rainmaker, and then we had buyer agents and administrative people. I did a little bit of everything, but what I finally fell into was her closing manager position. And that really fit into my heart space because that's where I got to do all the negotiations. So for the last few years with her, my main job was negotiating incoming contracts and taking them all the way through to closing. So I would deal with all the inspection issues, all the lending issues, and I loved it because I think that sort of fed the need in me to do the same things that I would be doing with law. But my ultimate passion was always in teaching. And in about 2000, I was getting a little bit burned out, and I started feeling this calling, and I was looking at going to grad school and going into psychology and teaching. And that's when I was approached by management, and they said, well, with all your experience, why don't you come and manage with us, because you're going to be able to do all the teaching, all the training that you can do, but still be in the realm of real estate and not go back to school. And so that sounded pretty good. And that's how I got into management.
Yeah. So then you're managing, a large brokerage firm and helping with all the training and coaching there. What was that experience like? I mean, was it because you went from, there's a big difference between teams and brokerages, and sometimes that structure is missing. I mean, what was that transition like? What were some of the challenges that you were now faced with when you got into the brokerage world?
Yeah. So the biggest challenge is, man, realtors are like herding cats. And so getting everybody to get in and do their things. The one thing I learned early on is so many agents are fantastic at selling. What they struggle with is running a sustainable business practice. And so that was always the biggest challenge for me, is getting them to see longer term and not thinking about the deal that they have today, but planting the seeds so that they can stay sustainable in the long run, so that they don't have those peaks and valleys. Also with managing, being a part of a large brokerage firm, even though it was wonderful and gave me many opportunities, there was a lot of politics behind the scenes. A lot of rules you had to follow, certain things you had to do, numbers you had to make. And my heart was not really in the recruiting and doing all that politicking. I just wanted to coach people. I just wanted to help people get to greatness and just teach classes. And so in 2004, I got my first certification as a coach. And then it was in 2010 that I came to ninja selling. And that really showed me the path that ultimately changed my life and brought me to where I am today.
Yeah. So when you transition into the coaching, because it sounds like that's really where your passion is, the training and the coaching. And so did you go right from the brokerage into ninja selling, or did you try coaching on your own before you were introduced with them? I mean, how did that transition come about?
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, being that I wanted to play it safe, I actually had a smaller firm in Denver that I knew really well. The owners of the firm, called Innovative Real Estate, were agents of mine when I managed, and they actually wanted to bring on an on-site coach and trainer. So they brought me under their wings, and I stayed with them for maybe about a year and a half, 2 years, and was on-site with them. That gave me the security of being able to pay the bills as a single mom. That was a huge concern to mine. But then it also allowed me to grow my business. So I was with them full time. That allowed me to slowly grow my own business. And within about 2 years, I had left and just did the ninja full time. And so now I work with Ninja selling and coaching. So I'm one of their instructors, one of their coaches. And then I also do things through Capano Consulting, which is less real estate driven and more just pure performance and productivity driven.
Awesome, love it. So, so when you're going with this, I haven't personally been through Ninja Systems, but I've heard so many brilliant things about it. What was it about their strategy, their structure, that really attracted you to them? Because I'm sure you had a lot of opportunities that you could have went after at this point. What was it about them that attracted you so much?
Yeah. Now, I'm not here to obviously sell Ninja, but I'm telling you, if you haven't looked into it, you need to, because it's extremely life-changing. The reason that I love Ninja so much more than some of the other programs, because I've been through many of the other ones and they all work too. But for me, Ninja was so human. When I looked at the basic principles, which are to stop selling and start serving, it is focusing on the customer and being customer centric. It's having a business strategy and working on your own personal mastery. Those were things that resonated to my core and to my belief systems. And I loved that they gave us a clear path of what to do to become successful. They basically give the recipe, and if you follow the recipe, the system will work. And I just love that it had all of those. But what makes me most excited is the results that I see. Outside of production increasing, it's the lifestyle that our people have. They start being able to get connected with their families. They start to be able to travel and take vacations, and really, truly take vacations. So for me, it's not just about changing your business, but it was about changing your life. After I went through, we have a 4-day session called an installation. After I went through the 4-day session, I went straight up to the founder, Larry Kendall, and just told him I needed to be a part of it. And luckily, with my experience, I was very fortunate, and they sort of hired me right on the spot.
Yep, that's awesome. Yeah. So and we see it happen all the time with real estate agents that, they're great, talented real estate agents. Man, they just don't have the systems, so they can't duplicate it. And systems not only give you an ROE, but I can tell you, people give you or not an ROI, but they give you an ROE, your return on your energy. So when you're working with clients, I mean, what do you? Let's go into some of the things that maybe we have an agent that's listening to this right now, or when they, a client that first reaches out to you that is a great, talented agent, but man, they just feel like the hamster in the wheel. They are struggling. What are like the most common things that you see them just missing that's not allowing them to take their career to where they want to take it?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say it's a combination of not leveraging their time and being aware of how they're spending their time, and also the component of they don't know how to say no. And we have to remember that saying yes gives us power because it allows us to focus on the right things that we're supposed to be doing. So I work with my clients a lot to track their time and really learn where their time is going because, in life, we don't get rollover minutes like you do on Verizon or Sprint or anything like that. And you have to, we talk about ROE, return on energy. I talk about ROT, return on time. Every minute that you spend needs to be an investment in your life and in your business. So you need to make sure that it's going to its highest and best use. And you need to get really clear on where you are giving your time and your energy and that it's going to the right places and the right people to make your life more fulfilled and also grow your business.
Yep, love it. So, and when it comes to let's just say systems, because it's where most people, agents, again, they love selling. They're good out there, but they don't want to sit behind a computer and build out spreadsheets and,
right.
Whatever it may be. Again, with that agent that's maybe at that point where they're like, man, I'm at my maximum capacity, my maximum threshold. I need to start creating some systems, putting systems in place so I can have a duplicatable, predictable business that also gives me some of that return on my time and energy. Where do they even start? Because I think so many people don't get started. The whole paralysis through analysis. They're like, man, it's overwhelming. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah. What I generally do on one of my first consultations with someone is I go through their core activities. So we talk about the goals that they want to accomplish, and then I try to bring it down to the very basics of what are maybe the top 5 activities that you need to do consistently and get the business you want. So I have them take out and get rid of the whole idea that you have to do everything and just focus on what is it that you need to do. So for many clients, it's I've got to just make phone calls. For others, it could be I want to do more face-to-face interactions. So I try to boil it down to just no more than 5 core activities to really focus on at a higher level. And also to look at 3 areas of business, because with real estate, one of the things I love about real estate is everything works. You can work for sale by owners, expireds, your sphere, networking, everything works. But there's also too many different areas and we can get disjointed. So I always have my people pick what I call 3 buckets. And we say, okay, these are the 3 areas of focus I want most of my business to come from. And then we create the strategies and the activities that will best support that. And then I always have them start with a business planning meeting with themselves early on in the week. So either Sunday night or Monday morning, they need to spend about 45 minutes planning their week because they have to remember they're a CEO. They're running their own company and they've got to be more strategic and more purposeful. So they take time to reflect on last week, what worked, what didn't work. Then they go in and review their hot and their warm list and start identifying who they need to connect with in the upcoming week. And then the third part is they get their schedule together so they know where they're going to be and where their time is going to go.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, I mean, it's like, Abraham Lincoln's quote, if you give me 6 hours and the axe, give me an axe and 6 hours to cut down a tree, I'm going to spend the first 4 hours sharpening my axe. It's success in the planning, and I absolutely love that. So when you're talking about like the 3, things for let's say lead gen or example, because I agree with you, right? Success is doing thousands of things, it's doing a few things brilliantly thousands of times. How do you identify what those are for you? I mean, is it in alignment with your strengths? Is it what's getting you currently results? I mean, how would somebody break down and know what those 3 things are?
I really focus on not only their strengths, but what they're passionate about. If somebody is really passionate about working their sphere of influence, that's where we want to focus on energy. If I sat down with someone, and this is just an example, and they did not want to do for sale by owners, I can't make that one of the buckets. I know for me, when I was in the sales field, I was really good at floor time, but I was horrible at open houses. So I got rid of open houses, and that was no longer one of my buckets. And I created strategies that would put me more in line with floor because that's what I enjoyed doing more. And that's where I found success. So I really look at where are they going to excel and have fun, because at the end of the day, it's okay to have fun. Yeah. This is a very emotional business. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of energy. We deserve to have fun. One of my clients, he can directly correlate about $125,000 of his income to playing golf. So as we put together his business plan, I'm like, dude, you got to play more golf because it's something he enjoyed and it was also working for him. So it's really about, connecting the activities with what you're passionate about.
Yep. So then when it comes to, because, so many agents, let's say they get to the point where they got their 3 things, they're planning well, they're doing all the right things, they're tracking their numbers, and, but we always hit these capacities. right? It's like, well, there's not enough time in a day. Maybe now it's time to hire people, but that's a very difficult thing to get right. A lot of people get it wrong. They hire just because they're like, they're desperate and they don't know who to hire, how to hire. Walk us down that path. Like what's the first person to hire and like what do you need to expect? What kind of systems in place, those things?
Absolutely. So the first person you always want to hire is an administrative type person, because the idea with the salesperson is our main job needs to be in generating leads. And what happens is we do that, the business comes in, we start doing all the administrative tasks, and we don't have time to generate more business. So we need to bring somebody in that we can offload and delegate all of the arbitrary tasks to the administrative tasks to, so that we can continue the flow going. So that's one of the first things that you want to do. And you've just got to have clear job descriptions for what that has, very clear clarity for them on what it is they need to do, and get somebody that is proficient in those skills. Oftentimes I see people hire an administrative assistant that really wants to be a buyer agent. And what happens after about 3 or 4 months, they're not proficient in the skill sets that you need for an administrative assistant. So what happens is they get bored, they stop doing the things they need to do because they want to be out in the field. So you've got to get very clear on the characteristics that you need and the personality style that you need. So always start with that. Then the next thing I generally see people do is to bring on maybe a buyer agent, because most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, that person really enjoys working with listings because it gives them more leverage and gives them more freedom. So after they have their administrative person in position, they're able to generate more business. They now have what we call overflow. So they can bring in this buyer partner or buyer assistant to help them offset the leads that they have coming in, but then also work and train them as maybe a protege or a partner to help them cultivate and grow their own business. And then from there, it just sort of, stems into, depending on how big you want to grow your team.
Yeah, and one thing, and I don't know what your personal thoughts are on this, but and this is something that most of what I've learned of just by doing it wrong and having to learn the hard way, right?
Yeah.
But one thing that I always talk about now that I wish I would have done differently was delegating out my personal life before I brought in a hire. It's like it's way cheaper to hire a landscaper, somebody do my laundry, somebody clean my house than a personal assistant. So do you have any thoughts there of, because I don't think people always separate them, and I'm like, it's all life. Let's integrate them. Do you have thoughts there of eliminate those things? Because again, cost-wise, it's way cheaper, buys you more time to focus on here. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And I agree 100%. And I was reading an article, I believe it was in Success Magazine a few months back, and they were talking about that there is this trend now for many entrepreneurs to actually delegate out and get a personal assistant prior to an administrative assistant for exactly that. They're building their business. It's their baby. It's where their heart space is. And they don't want to delegate those things out because it's stuff that they enjoy doing. But the things that they don't enjoy doing is the laundry, the grocery shopping, the taking the car in for servicing. So I think it could be an amazing place to start. And I know I do that personally. It's very challenging for me to delegate out too many of my business things because I can't delegate out a coaching call. I can't delegate out a webinar or a training. So other than mailings, there's not a whole lot I can delegate out. But I do delegate out my house cleaning. I delegate out sometimes the watching and walking of my dog and all those other things. And it's freed me up a ton. And you're absolutely right. For the dollars that I spend, it makes much better sense for me to work on my dollar productive activities and put those things out to a personal assistant.
So with you, being a single mom and building your business and doing this with a single mom, because I get asked this question all the time, from single moms. And I'm like, well, I can give you some advice, but it's from theory because I have a stay-at-home life with my 3 kids. I always tell people, I'm like, it's so weird. I just walk into my closet and the clothes are just magically there.
Magically there, yeah.
Of course I will try to give them some advice, but it's out of theory. It's not, I haven't done it like you have. What are your suggestions there? Because there's a lot of things, there might be activities that they can delegate, mom activities, but then things they don't want to delegate. But then also too, I find so often within moms, they'll have like this internal maybe guilt because they're trying to build their real estate business, but then they maybe feel like they're not, leveling up as the mom. And again, I think with guys, I've just never had that, right? Like my mom, my wife's at home with the kids. I get to come home. I just get to play and have fun with the kids. And so it's tough to relate, but you're somebody that's done it. And I'm sure you coach a lot of people on it. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, this whole guilt thing, whatever are you talking about? I have no idea. It is a juggling game. And I just say, first of all, you've got to get your priorities straight. And you've got to make being a mom, non-negotiable at the end of the day. I remember when my son Nicholas was 3 years old, he's 11 now. I was negotiating a contract and it was in the evening, and he took the phone out of my hand and he said, "Mommy, you're not paying attention to me." And it was the daggers in the heart. And I was like, no more. So I realized that I had to put my superwoman cape away. And I would say the first thing is be honest and allow yourself the forgiveness to not be perfect, because you can't. We try so hard to do everything at this high level, and we have created this arbitrary vision that we can get it all done. And one of the items that I'm going to be working on, I love to write, so I'm going to be writing a book, and I think I'm going to title one, "No, You Can't Do It All," because you've got to just admit that I can't do it all on my own. The second thing is you got to get support systems in. I am extremely fortunate, and I mean this from the sincerity of my heart. I have an amazing ex-husband, and he is remarried to a terrific woman, and I couldn't do it without them. We really co-parent well together. We share schedules. We share custody 50-50, but they are there supporting me 100%, and I couldn't do it without that. At the same time, my family's around. I live in Colorado right now. Most of my family's in California, but they're there for me if I need them. I have one sister that's about 10 minutes away from me, and I just go to my friends and I say, "Listen, I've got to work. Can Nicholas come to your house for a few hours?" And I offer to do the same things for them. So I think first and foremost, you just got to, on some level, surrender. No, you can't do it all, and you've got to be brave enough to ask for help. That was the biggest thing that I had a challenge with. I was so afraid to let people know that I was vulnerable, to let people know that I needed help and couldn't do it all. And I just started to crumble. And it was when I started allowing myself to be vulnerable and I could ask for help, I found out others were just like me and needed the same help. And so we just built a community, and that has really freed me up. But I also am extremely purposeful with my time. And I know exactly where I need to be. My schedule is my freedom. The very first thing that goes into my schedule each week is when I spend my time with Nicholas, what he has going on, if it's any sports, all of those things. The next thing that I put in there is when I'm going to work out, because taking care of myself, I know that I can't serve at the level that I need to serve, whether it's for my family, my work, or anything, unless I have energy. And so I have to take care of myself and keep healthy. Then I start getting into prioritizing my week. And I have just learned I have to say no. I cannot do it all. And I can say it in a kind way, such as I would love to do that. However, I'm already committed that day, but keep me in mind if that comes up down the road. And I've just learned that I have to be honest with people, not take life so seriously, and just give myself the forgiveness to be the best person that I can be, and know that I'm going to fall, and that's okay. Just pick yourself up and do the best you can.
Yep, I love it, love it. So, let's keep talking about the progression of the team growth, right? And what's really cool about you is you were able to get experience with an amazing high producing team from day one. So you've seen a lot of different angles of this. So when an agent's ready to do that, because one thing that I see so often is compensation structures are structured wrong. They don't really. So then they get to a point where they're just never able to be profitable as a team. With that. So can you give us? I know it's tough because every area is different. And there's so many structures, but can you give some general guidelines of what people should be thinking about when it comes to pay structures for an assistant? Because I'll see some people that are like, "Hey, I'm going to bonus them per closing." Well, all of a sudden they're doing 20 closings a month. They're like, "Holy shit! Now my assistant's making more than me." Right? Can you give some general guidelines that you give advice for people to be prepared, or at least start thinking about those things?
Absolutely. Now, I do like the idea of having a bonus structure, especially for administrative people. And I'm seeing most of the time with administrative staff, they're giving them an hourly fee plus a spiff off of the production, because the whole idea is they are supposed to free you up so that you can do more lead generation. So in theory, it should work that way. When it doesn't work, it's generally because with the free time that they have, they don't put it back into their business. They go and they do other things, and they get distracted watching videos and doing all those things. But if they truly do reinvest their time, everything should work out. The reason I like giving them a bonus is it gives the staff member a vested interest in the growth of the company. Because remember, even if they only have a small sphere of 25 or 30 people, your administrative people also have a sphere that they should be working and bringing in to help grow the team. So with administrative assistants, I generally see an hourly plus a little bit of a spiff. Very rarely, unless they are maybe the manager of the team or managing a large staff, are they complete salary. Generally, it's an hourly position. When it gets into getting buyer agents and listing agents, most of the time they are straight commission based. And I see it going anywhere from a 50-50 split on up to, I don't think I've seen higher than a 70-30 split, based upon the years of experience and how much business that they're doing.
Okay. So with we've seen this. I don't want to say a trend. I think a lot of high producing teams have probably had this for years, but it's become a popular thing recently with like the inside sales agent model. Mm-hmm. Right? Which I think is a really cool rule, because it got to the point where I've been operating a team now for 12 years, and it's like, look, we can flood our agents with leads, but it gets to a point where, man, they just have a difficult time following up with them, plus everything else. Mm-hmm. And I mean, are you a fan of the inside sales agent model? Is that something that you guys teach about, or?
Yeah. For me personally, I am not a fan, because I believe in teaching people how to fish and helping them become sustainable on their own. And what I find is that when they are dependent on the team leader for leads, should the market shift, which it does, you still have as a team leader all of your overhead and all of your expenses. And it's then dependent on them taking there. I think having some sort of lead generation is great, because I think it can fill in the gaps. And I think some people do an amazing job when they're given a lead, but they don't necessarily know how to cultivate their own business. But I think for long-term sustainability, from what I have seen and the ratios of energy that I see, is the best business practices are always going to be with people that like, and trust, and building a business model, because I don't know what's going to happen to the internet in 5, 10, 15 years, but I know where my sphere of influence will be. And the more that I can work with them, the more sustainable my business is going to be. And I think people also have more fun working with those that they enjoy spending time with. And I think that there's always a danger when they become too dependent on you. And I think there's a danger of getting complacent.
So then, with that being said, do you ever see, or have you seen success with, or would you encourage almost like a different model where, hey, if we're going to give you leads, that may be a 50-50, but if you procure your own, maybe it's a 70-30, to
Yes.
teach them to go out there and do their open houses and prospect and really incentivize them to do that?
Yes, and I see that a lot, where they say, okay, maybe it's 50-50 if it's a team-generated lead. If you bring in your own, it's 60-40, 70-30. And a lot of people challenge me and saying, well, wouldn't that make them not want to work my leads? And the answer that I have to that is yes, absolutely. And that's what we want, because then we can hire another person in and teach them, have them take the overflow, and just keep growing everybody from there. There will always be people to take the leads. You never have to worry about that.
Yep, love it. So then, because it can get to a point, and this was something that I did totally wrong, which is a lot of things in my business, but I exited too quickly, meaning, because it might get to a point where as a team leader, you're like, well, man, I can't keep selling. I need to go out there and be recruiting and then growing the team and exiting at the wrong point. How does somebody know if they're at that point? Because I think a lot of people want to become that true CEO, but they're not fully ready. When does somebody know they're at that point, and when should they start considering that?
Certainly. I think, first of all, you have to ask yourself, what is it that you really want to do? So the team that I was on, she didn't want to be a manager. She wanted to still be a rainmaker. So what she did is she still focused on lead generation and going on appointments every day. She then hired a manager to be more of that CFO and run the daily operations, to do the recruiting, to do the hiring, and all of those things, because she didn't want to do any of that. I have another client, he loves to manage and grow people. So he has hired more people that are going to generate business and leads, so that he can spend most of his time in the trenches with his people, mentoring and guiding. So I think first and foremost, before exiting, you've got to ask yourself, what is it that you really want to do? Because not all top agents who can be a rainmaker are going to be a strong manager in running all of those things. So I think first you have to ask yourself what you want to do. If it is that you do want to get more into the CEO level, where you do want to kind of be more hands-on as far as the daily operations, then I think you have to have in place the right people to be able to keep the lead generation going, because you don't want your business to fall. So I think you have to really look at having the right people that are going to continually be bringing in the new business, because if they are dependent on you, which is what we were just talking about, if they are too dependent on you, and you bring in the business, if you put your focus in another area, they're not going to be able to be there to sustain it. So we've got to make sure that they are sustainable almost on their own before you exit.
Yep. So love it. So as far as for some of these teams, and the reason I'm hitting this is, we've just seen this massive shift where
Oh, yeah.
Everybody either has a team or wants to have a team, whether they do it right or wrong. It's just it's just so much more profitable than the brokerage model. So that's just where we're seeing a lot of people go with that. Now, with accountability and training with your people, right? Because I don't know, there can be this thing with death by meeting, and there can almost be like, am I giving enough training? Am I not giving too much? Is this enough accountability? Is it not enough? What would some recommendations there be?
I think as a leader, first and foremost, you have to decide what you want to do and who you want to hire. I have some people that want to hire newer agents, and I have some that don't want to hire newer agents because they don't want to have as much time in the management and in the meetings. So it really depends on, again, kind of where you want to go. But I think you want to keep your meetings short and sweet. I think having a weekly huddle or a weekly meeting is important to build the synergy and to make sure everybody is clear. But you don't want them to be 3 or 4 hours. They have to be to the point. You need an agenda. This is what we're talking about, and make sure that the people have a voice. But you've got to really create some norms around how you're going to have your meeting and what the purpose of each meeting is, and be brave enough that if somebody goes off track, to bring them back. As far as accountability, I have a lot of people that they have created what's called maybe a scorecard, or based upon their role, what are the weekly duties that they really need to focus on. And I talked earlier about my agents do their weekly business planning meeting with themselves. They have their team members do that as well. And their team members then turn that into them so that they can then review that and make sure that they are staying on track with what they need to do. They can also then see if patterns are developing, and then they can call maybe a more of a one-on-one meeting to talk with them about the strengths and what's falling through the cracks and help them that way. Because I think people, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Hawthorne effect, but the Hawthorne effect basically watched people in factories, and they regulated the temperature and the light. And what they found is that when people felt they were being watched and thought about, their level of productivity went up. So even though a lot of people say they don't like accountability, internally we do, because it shows that somebody actually cares about us and is watching out for us. So I do think it's really important for a leader to have some level of accountability, because their people really do want it. And without it, they will fall off track. We all do. I mean, I have a coach, I have accountability partners, even though I am a coach. And it's because it's too easy to fall off track.
Yep. So, when you were talking about managing the brokerage and with agents, you said a comment of it's like herding cats, right, with independent contractors, which
Yep.
it definitely can be. So with that, because some of these agents may do it, some may not. It's hard to get everybody to do it. I mean, is there? How do you enforce it? Like if somebody's not doing it, of course they don't also have to be on the team. I mean, do you have a threshold where it's just like, hey, man, if they're not doing the work, should they get the X? But then also maybe they're a top producer and they're producing and they just don't want to do the work. Like how do you? Because it's something I'm asking this question because it's something I struggle with on my team constantly. Of what does that look like?
Right. Well, I think that there are two different avenues. First and foremost, if I am the managing broker of a firm with 30 agents, 100 agents, it doesn't really matter. All of those agents are independent contractors. So I have less influence on getting them going. But what I would do is I probably would sit down with them, and chances are there's a disconnect someplace. Chances are it's between what motivates them and what their why is. And so I would probably talk with them about initially what inspired them to get into the business and what motivates them, to try to get them back and connected with that and create accountability on their why, rather than the end result of just selling real estate. But it is harder to enforce it when they are truly that independent contractor. A team, on the other hand, I think is very different. And I can be a little bit mean at times. I'm a little bit of a pit bull. But for me, if you have a team, even though they may be a licensed agent and an independent contractor, they are still part of your organization. And as a leader, you have the right to set tighter and more clear expectations and hold their feet to the fire. And I think you are doing not only yourself and your business, but them an injustice if you don't do that. But it starts first with expectations. And I find that a lot of team leaders it goes back to the hiring. They're so quick to hire and so quick to go through training that the team members come on and they don't have clear expectations of what they need to do and what their level of performance is. But it can go back to any of the people that you look at, John Maxwell, Jim Collins, all of the people say the same thing. You are only as strong as you allow your weakest link to be. And if someone on your team is not performing, your team will not perform. So I am a firm believer that if you have a team and a team leader, you have the absolute right to come to them to say, listen, this is what you were hired for. These are the expectations you signed up for. What's going on? How can I help you get to that level? And if they're not going to do it, then you would need to look at the betterment of the team rather than the individual. Because when you're on a team, it's not about the individual pieces. It's about the synergy and the unity together.
So when it comes to, maybe somebody's not getting the production, let's just talk about like an agent that's on a team.
Yeah.
How do you, I mean, obviously the ultimate judgment is, are they doing deals? You know, right? But I mean, I've seen people that come out of the gate and they pop an escrow, they're popping a lot of escrows in the first 2 months. And I've seen some people where it really takes about 6 months, but then they become a producer. How do you ensure that you're not maybe making a premature decision on letting them go with the results? I mean, in the beginning, is it just activity-based and not closing-based for a certain threshold? And at what point would you make it more result-based instead of just like daily activity-based?
I'm a firm believer in looking at the daily habits because I believe that the end results are completely correlated to the activities that you choose or choose not to do on a daily basis. So for me, what I do is I generally I kind of work things on 90-day cycles, and I believe in the system that I work to so much because I know it works, and it does take about 90 to 100 days to work. So when I plug them in, whether they are a brand new agent or if they're an existing agent just looking to retune, if they follow the system and they do the system day in and day out at a level of at least 85% or higher, because nobody's 100% perfect, they will see the results. If they are truly doing the activities and not seeing the results, I need to step in because something's happening. And I go back to early on in my career, you said that you made a lot of mistakes. Well, that's how we all learn. I did too. I was horrible. I was a train wreck at the beginning. And I remember I was turning in my lead sheets and I was saying that I was talking to about 75 people a week and I was getting no leads. So my boss sat me down and she said, one of two things is happening. You're either lying to me about who you're talking to or you're not saying the right things. And I had to come clean, and it was probably a mix of both of them. But what she did is we evaluated that I didn't know what I was saying. I wasn't looking for the right closings, and I just was sort of fumbling over myself. So she sat down and she worked with me. And within 90 days, I was having about a 70% conversion rate on the floor calls that were coming in. So I think we owe it to them. If they truly are doing the activities and nothing's happening, there's a disconnect, and they're either not saying things, they're not doing it the right way. And it can just be in those subtle little nuances of the semantics of how they position things that could really change the game. So as a leader, I would sit down and I would probably watch them, role play with them, and really observe what it is that they're doing to see what the disconnect is. If after 90 days, they're not working the system, obviously they're not going to have the results. So if they're not working the systems, I'm probably going to put them on probation and say, when we hired you, this was the system that we agreed that you would follow. You're not doing it and therefore not having the results. Something has to change. Are you going to change and start doing them? Do we need to make a change in the activities and recreate a new plan? Or do we need to terminate this agreement? But it's the consistency in the small daily activities that will get you the results that you want.
Yeah, love it. So then let's talk about your other coaching venture, coaching company. Like how would somebody know if they should reach out to you through Ninja Selling and have you as a coach there, or your other coach company? So let's talk about what led you to that, what that is, and how would they know which route they'd want to go to?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually never really thought about it. That's a great question. Well, Ninja, I would say, is primarily real estate based. And you really need to believe in the philosophy. So most of my Ninja clients come to me through the Ninja Selling program. They've done the 4-day or they've done some sort of 1-day Ninja training. And they really believe in that process and that system. There are a lot of people out there that have not gone to Ninja, but they do still want a coach, and they want someone that's going to really help them with their performance and also strategies. So I consider myself on that end to be more of a performance coach and strategist. Also, it's non-industry specific. So I have some lenders, I have some home inspectors. There could be somebody else in another field that wants to get better at all of these things, but they're just not in real estate. So I don't need to focus on a lot of the real estate techniques from Ninja with them. So my individual coaching just under Capano Consulting has classes that are more around time management, managing your distractions, understanding your value and your differentiation, knowing how to build a database the right way. So it's items like that that are, again, non-industry specific that really focus on raising your level of performance and then also helping you develop strategies to stay more purposeful.
Yeah, love it. So, and I got a lot more questions for you, but I just want to make sure, just in case, so I don't forget to ask. So, what's the? Somebody's listening to this right now, and they know that they need a coach. They're struggling with that. What's the best way to reach out to you to get a conversation? You know, going to see if you guys are a fit for each other.
Perfect. One of two things. They can go to my website, which is www.clarat.com, and it's spelled CLARA-TY.com. And on there, they can see all the classes that I offer and sort of the philosophy that I have. They are also willing, they could email me at clara@clarat.com, or they can just give me a jingle on my cell phone, which is 303-956-2309. I'm in Colorado, so I'm on Mountain Time, but I always offer a free consultation. And honestly, I'm here to help people. You know, yes, I love making a living, but if I can just help people, even get them more clear on the path they need to take, whether it's with me or somebody else, that's why I do what I do.
Yep, love it. And those of you watching, listen, we'll make it really easy, and there'll be a link right below where you can just click and go right to those and connect with Clara. So that just brings up another question for me. You know, I used to sit there and just say like, oh, there's all these bad coaches out there, right? Because I'm this guy I'm always being coached. I probably dropped $300,000-$400,000 or 12 years on coaches, consultants, events, whatever. And then later, you know, I realized the coach wasn't the issue. I just didn't know how to choose the right coach. You know, it was like, well,
Absolutely.
I knew I needed help, but I didn't get clarity on exactly what I needed help with. So I may have hired a mindset coach when I needed a funnel building coach. You know?
That's a great point, yeah.
So what are some recommendations there that you would recommend people? Because this doesn't apply just to coaches. This is like self-development. People are always like, oh, I'm reading these books. Okay, well, like, is it the right book for you? Like, you know, right? Like, we got to make sure that we're also paying attention to the right things with self-development.
Absolutely. And I think it goes back to, again, you've got to be honest with yourself. And, you know, and a good coach during the consultation will sort of prompt them through this and ask them more questions to determine, do you need a strategist? Do you need an accountability coach? Do you need a life coach? Because they're all very different. And so I think really getting clear on what is it that you want to accomplish. And I always ask my clients, what's important to you in having a coach? How will you know it's working? What are the measurements that you are going to be looking at to say after 90 days, 6 months, a year, this was worth it for me? So I really try to get them clear on being honest about what they're trying to accomplish. I mentioned that I have some accountability and coaches. I have an accountability partner that really helps me focus on more of my Ninja business. I have another accountability partner that helps me focus on the more global infrastructure of building the Capano side. And then I also have a business coach that helps me with the higher levels of writing my books, you know, and just kind of knocking it out of the park. So you have to really get clear and then find the ones that will help you in that area. I also think you got to like their personality. You know, I'm kind of a dork, so I need people to be silly. I'm very sarcastic. I also am to the point. There's not a lot of fluff with me. And so I have to have people that can roll with me, that know that they got to laugh. They've got to be a little bit silly and not take themselves so seriously. So you got to look for someone that's going to also have the right personality for you.
Yep, I love it. So then, you know, let's say if somebody wants to get into coaching themselves, because I see this too with a lot of, you know, real estate agents, team leaders, brokers that want to become this coach, and they push so hard for it to become this coach, and then maybe they get there and they're like, holy crap, I don't, you know, like I learned this before I got into real estate business. I was in the health club business, and I realized I hated personal training. But I loved running the facility. Like, I like training the trainers, but I couldn't stand, you know. So, you know, I kind of went down that path too, and I realized, man, I'm just miserable with one-on-one coaching. You know, how would somebody, if they're thinking about that, knowing what you know now and being in that space, like if somebody's thinking about that, like how would they know if coaching's for them truly?
Yeah, I think you have to look at what are your passions and what is your heart space. And I can resonate with what you said. Even though I was successful in real estate, I didn't love selling real estate. I love what I do. And at the end of the day, if somebody said, you don't need to make any money, would you still work? I still would. I am one of those people that truly, I wish I didn't have to charge because I want to help more people. That's how much I love what I do and how passionate. And I think that's really what you have to feel, because I could make more money selling real estate, but that's not what it's about for me. It's about the connection I can make, and it's about making an impact in other people's lives and helping other people achieve their own greatness. So you have to really make sure that you are passionate about it, because it is hard. It's almost like therapy on some level. There, you got to dig people out and pull them out and be their cheerleader sometimes you got to have really tough conversations with them, which is not always easy, and you have to really be there at their side. And it's not always 9 to 5. I have clients that sometimes call me after hours because something went wrong and they need a pep talk, and you know what, I'm going to be there for them because they're my people and I have a vested interest in them growing and getting stronger too. So first and foremost, it's got to be something that you're really passionate about, and you can't focus on the money. I always say that focus on servitude first, the money will follow. So if you lead with serving, you'll never have to worry about the compensation that comes in. On the other side is I am a huge proponent of education and academics. It's just who I am. I would be a professional student for the rest of my life, and I kind of am. So there are certification programs out there. And I really do believe, I do think there are some people that are natural, but I do think you owe it to yourself and you owe it to your clients to get some sort of formal training. It could be a certification through any kind of program, Tony Robbins or whatever it may be. But I would also, as you grow, invest yourself more. I happen to have my master's in organizational development and leadership because I knew that to coach at that high level and be more of a strategist, that gave me the training that I needed. Plus, it also showed my people how invested I am in myself to be invested in them. And then, I do a lot of the trainings. The other thing is I still do the same things that I coach my people to. I still hold an active real estate license. I sell very minimally, maybe 4 or 5 transactions a year, but I do that to keep myself relevant, because whether they are in real estate or whether they are in another field, I still do the same core things because I know if it works for me on a small level, it will work for them on a larger level. And I want to know what my people are going through. I want to understand the challenges they have about reaching out to people and putting all these things together. And I think that really helps bind me to them as well, because, I am a leader to them and I have to walk the walk and talk the talk just along with them.
Yeah, I love it. There's so many charlatans in the coaching space that people need to be careful. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors. There's a lot of BS, and I love that you brought that up. So, okay, so something that you and I are both extremely passionate about is fitness. You know, right? So how important is fitness to you and your overall success and your business and just overall life?
Yeah, it's huge. It's always been a big part of my life. As a kid, I did gymnastics, soccer, track. So I did all of those things. It was after my divorce, I got connected with yoga, and that really unleashed things for me. I have not been good this last month, I will be honest. It's been a very busy month. But what I had mentioned before is the reason that it is so important to me now. When I was in my 20s, it was mostly about looking good. What it's about now is having the energy, and it's about taking care of myself, because you only get one go around at this life, and you have got to take care of yourself. You've got to sleep. You've got to eat right. You've got to keep yourself healthy in order to serve. I have an 11-year-old son. I have parents that I adore. I have the most amazing parents in the world. I have sisters and friends, and I want to be there to take care of all of them, including all of my clients. I cannot do that if I'm sick, if I'm tired, and just falling apart. So now my main focus is not on myself, but it's on taking care of myself so I can more greatly serve others. And even on the days that I don't want to get out, because it's not fun every day, I always remind myself, you know what, Clara, you can't sleep in today. You can't not do something because you owe it to your people. Your people are counting on you. And what they really hire me for is not necessarily the coaching or anything. They hire me to be at my peak performance, because when I'm at my peak performance, they can be at their peak performance. And that's really what they're hiring me for. So I owe it to them in addition to myself.
Yeah, it's this weird thing. It's almost like everything that we've ever been taught or conditioned, as we're growing up is like backwards, like we're taught like, oh, you need to be selfless, not selfish. When reality is we need to learn to be selfish, like you said, so we can give our best version of ourselves, to others. And it's just this massively, different way than we've been conditioned to think. It's just crazy.
Yeah. And I've become my new saying sort of right now is, taking care of yourself. It's the best lesson that we've never learned.
Yeah. Yeah, love it. So what's advice that you give? Now this is kind of going back to a lot of the moms, if you will, out there, because I think us dudes, it's pretty easy for us to be selfish. You
guys have your own challenges, so.
Yeah, so but I find a lot of moms, they're like, dude, I can't be selfish. Like I'm so conditioned to be selfless, and they again, a lot of guilt, other things. How do you start coaching and training them to shift that, those patterns that can be so deep?
Yeah, and it's a very valid question, and it's not a perfect thing, and we do struggle. I'll be honest, it is a different struggle. I don't mean it to be a sexist thing. It just is a very different struggle, and I really get them to look at their family, and if they are sick, they can't take care of their family. And if they are sick, they can't go out to work to make the income to take care of their family. So it's really just helping them change their mindset. So I work with them a lot on gratitudes and affirmations, and I really get them focused on, if they truly tell me that their family is their priority, then their actions need to match up with that. Because whatever we give our time to is really, a priority. And if we don't give our time to ourselves, we're not making ourselves a priority. And if we don't make ourselves a priority, not at the detriment of other people, but again, to better serve others, that's where it needs to come from. Yep. So as I mentioned, with Nicholas, I wasn't paying attention to him. He was absolutely right. That was a bad way of being selfish. I was being selfish by putting my business before Nicholas. But taking care of yourself, that is not a selfish thing to do, because taking care of yourself means I can be a better mom. I can be a better friend. I can be a better coach, trainer, and so forth.
Yeah, I always look at it like the airplane analogy, right? Like they tell you when you're getting on the plane, hey, if the cabin pressure drops, put your mask on first, because if you don't and you get knocked out, then you can't help your kids.
Exactly. And that's an analogy I use all the time with my people too. And it really gets them to understand and see it.
Yeah, so you talked a lot about self-development with your coaches that you personally have. Do you have with self-development with your workout, whatever? Do you have maybe a daily ritual or daily routine that you have that you follow to make sure it doesn't get missed and to make sure that you're growing daily?
Yeah. So my morning routine is that's my critical thing. If I do not do my morning routine, the rest of the day is off. And my morning routine is so important to me. And mine is a little bit longer than some people's. Mine is about 45 minutes long. So I know that the brain is most susceptible to thought the first 20 minutes of the day and the last 20 minutes of the day. So when I start my day out, is the first thing I do is I get up and I go for a walk. I either walk on my treadmill if it's too cold to go outside, or I take my dog for a walk or a run. And we go for about a 30-minute walk, and I listen to a podcast. And I have a few different podcasts that I love, yours to be one of them. And I listen to those because I grow. And that's sort of my personal growth moment. Then what I do is I come back and I do my affirmations and my gratitudes, and I write in my journal. I do 2 handwritten notes every day. Sometimes it's a few more, but I always do some handwritten notes. And I do all of this before I jump into my emails, into my day. I get up at about 5:15 in the morning. And one of the reasons I do that is I want to make sure I get all of these things done before Nicholas wakes up, so that I can then be with him. And if it's a day I don't have him, then it just gives me a little bit extra time to jump into my day. And then later in the day, I might do my yoga, or I might go for another walk or run or whatever I need to do. But that 45 minutes in the morning is critical. And I have found it's been the greatest gift, because not only does it set my mindset right for the day and give me energy, I used to always be running on the days. I would be running to get Nicholas to school. I'd be running to get to my clients. What I have found is my mornings are now very calm and very organized. I can sit with Nicholas and watch cartoons. I can make him pancakes for breakfast and sit down with him. And it's turned into an amazing gift to just put me in the right mindset and the right level of peace that I need to make my days what they are.
Yep, I love that. So there's so many changes in the real estate space, right? So and when I ask this question, because some people, when I ask it, that are let's say real estate coaches out there, they may think that I mean like the real estate agent going extinct, and I don't I don't personally foresee that happening, at least anytime in the foreseeable future. I don't feel like we're going to get replaced with some hologram or, so I'm just talking about each individual agent, their own business becoming extinct. Like there's predictions out, like Gary Vee recently said, he thinks that Walmart will be out of business in 15 years because all the bricks and mortar, they can't keep up with an Amazon that already in Seattle's like at your doorstep in 2 hours via drone. With the shifts that we're seeing and all the exponential technology growth, what are some shifts that our industry's taking where if realtors don't learn to change and adapt to this, they are absolutely, their own personal business will become extinct?
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of how I want to say this the right way. I almost think in order to sustain yourself long term, you almost have to revert and go backwards. I think technology is amazing. Don't get me wrong. I can give a child in Nairobi an iPhone 4 and they still have access to more information than Ronald Reagan did during his administration. But I think we can also become too connected. And what I find is that we are getting away from the eye to eye, nose to nose, belly to belly connection and focusing too much on the technology. And we are making it more transactional and less relational. And I really believe that in order to show our value, because the average person knows 10 to 12 realtors. So and they see us as oftentimes as being interchangeable. So we have got to up our game, and it cannot be just about delivering service. Being good is not good enough. You have to really know your people. You have to understand what they are. You cannot be a broker. The term that we use in Ninja is you've got to turn into a proactive, trusted advisor. You need to become someone that they trust and come to and see as a valuable resource, not just for business, but in their life. So I think we need to get away from the texting and the emails, and we got to get more into picking up the phone and calling people. We've got to do more of the handwritten notes and showing people that they care. Because outside of food, clothing, and shelter, the next basic human need is connection. And we cannot have our connection be through a phone. It's got to be true, honest connection. Another thing is really focusing on the people that you know. I don't know what's going to happen with technology, but I do know that I can always help people in my sphere of influence. And the closer I am to them, the more that I show them that I care about them and that I am a valuable resource to them in their world, I won't have to worry about the business because they will always come to me because they know that I'm somebody that they can trust and somebody that will take care of them.
Yeah, I love it. And I it's something that I'm always preaching to my team. It's like going back in time. I'm like, look, our commissions are under attack because when we DocuSign everything, they don't see the 45 minutes it took you to prep the paperwork. They see the 2 seconds it takes to click and sign. You know, right? So it's just, there's so many unknowns that they just don't see now, and it's
absolutely in their mind, all we do is look at pretty houses and have coffee all day long. That's all we do.
So with that being said, though, because to stay in touch with our sphere, we've got to build our own lists. Right? And you see some of these agents now. They're using social media to build their lists, not their email list, but they're getting, their friend requesting everybody and trying to stay in touch there. Well, maybe you build up with Facebook, I don't know, you have 6,000 friends or followers on there, but then all of a sudden that goes away and they're not in your database. Yeah. Like what are some tactics that realtors maybe could offer of value to get them off of that social media platform into their database, offer them something of value so as these things go away in the future, they can stay in touch with that SOI?
Yeah, they've got to make it more personal, and it's going to be strategic. So one is you've got to get off social media and get more connected with them. And that could simply start with even an instant messaging them. So let's say that I have one of those 6,000 people on my database and I see that their dog passed away. Well, rather than putting the emoji of the sad crying face, you know what? Send them an instant message telling them how sorry you are. If you have their number, pick up the phone and call them, or possibly write them a handwritten note and make it more personal. Because the more personal you can make it, it may not happen after the first one. I may not be able to meet somebody, send them a handwritten note, and then all of a sudden start sending them my monthly postcards or newsletters. But if I do that 2 or 3 times, I'm going to build that connection where it will be comfortable and acceptable for me to then start moving them over. And I think anytime, I think client events are important. And I think more people that are sort of on that acquaintance rim will be more apt to come to something if they don't feel so alone. So you could say, I'm having a happy hour, or I'm hosting a party here, come. And they might be able to come, and then you'll be able to get that FaceTime with them. If you and I have a mutual friend that's an acquaintance on my end, I might ask you for help in connecting us together.
Love it.
But you got to get personal. You got to get out from behind the screen and you got to get personal.
Yep. Yeah. It's which is all. I mean, it just seems like such common sense, but I think. I think all this technology has like turned us into these introverts where now we just, we forget some of these little things, which is so powerful. Yep. So, all right. So last couple questions for you. Knowing what you know today, if you could go back to the 1993, Clara, if you could go back in time to yourself at 1993 and give yourself like 2 pieces of advice when this journey all started for you, what would those 2 pieces of advice be?
I think trust yourself. I think a lot of times when we're young, we second guess ourselves and we have that fear. So I think trust yourself. And I also think be authentic. Don't be afraid to be you and, just embrace who you are. And then if I could have a third one, I would say don't be afraid of failure.
Yeah. Yep, love it. Yeah, it's these societal kind of truths that we're taught where like failure is bad. And like the best thing on the planet is failure. It's the best growth moments, and just like the selfless and selfish things that we were talking about earlier. It's it's almost like relearning. It's almost like I always look at it like almost like getting in a car wreck and having to learn how to re-walk. It's almost like what we got to do with what we're taught if we truly want to go out there and create success.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff. So, I started this podcast about 18 months ago or so. And the reason that I started it is, again, there could be so much smoke and mirrors. There's a lot of great information out there, but there's a lot of just bad information. And a lot of, you get a lot of people teaching and coaching from a place of theory that have never actually done it. So I was like, well, I want to create a space where we go to the doers like yourself that are actually in the trenches, that have done it, that have built it, that continue to do it. It's not theory, it's actual true strategy, and give back to our listeners so they can actually learn from the right people. And of course, on a selfish standpoint, I get to pick amazing minds like yours every single day. So it's huge for me for self-development too. So with that being said, any last pieces of words of advice or inspiration that you'd like to leave our listeners with so they can go create the life they know they want and deserve?
Absolutely. I just say, just go for it. Leap, the net will appear. So follow your dreams, but you got to surround yourself with great people. Surround yourself with people that believe in you almost more than you believe in yourself, because there will be days that are hard. So really look at your environment and who you're surrounding yourself with, and get a goal, get a clear path. Break it down to the bare minimum of the simple things that you just need to do every day, and know that it's small incremental change, and just take one action step every day and keep going on that path.
Yep, love it. Powerful words. And to those that are watching and listening, you guys, I know we end every podcast with this, but information without implementation is truly just the start of delusion. Information is no longer power. It's taking action on the information that you learn that creates power in your world. So Clara dropped so many just amazing pieces of information, so much knowledge on you guys today. Take something that you learned, take immediate action on it, so you can go out there and create that life you know you want and deserve. And below, like I said, those watching and listening, there'll be links right below where you go check out Clara's website and get with her contact information, get in touch with her, check out to see if she's a fit for you and all that awesome stuff. So Clara, really appreciate you being here. This is a massive honor. I know how busy you are, and really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today.
Well, thank you. It was back at you. It was a real honor for me. And if there's ever anything I can do for your listeners, I just want to help. And you've been a big inspiration to me and so many out there. So thank you for what you do.
Yeah, thank you so much. Truly appreciate the kind words. And again, it was a massive honor. And you guys watching and listening, thank you for being here. And we will see you next time.